We'll call this meeting to order. Join me for the pledge and the prayer, and then we have a very special pinning ceremony. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor
the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
You'll please pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you, Lord, for the ability to meet and do the business of the city of Loveland. We thank you for all our blessings, Lord, and we just pray for a hedge of protection over our city, Lord. Thank you for the ceremony that we're about to have for one of our first responders. We just pray protection over these first responders, Lord, and our whole community as they keep us safe. Please, Lord, bless us with rain this week. We really, really need it. Safe storms with nothing bad in them, Lord. And please give us wisdom tonight as we do the business of the city. Please give us wisdom as we work on figuring out some issues that we have. We love you, Jesus, and we thank you for all you do. In Jesus' name, amen. At this time, we will have an oath of office and badge pinning ceremony for our Loveland Fire Department. You want a microphone? Yes. No, I think I'm good. I'm not. Yes. You want us to move? You want us to get out of your? That's a cool photo op, and I want to be. You need a microphone, or we good?
Well, I have a pretty loud voice, so.
We're good.
Y'all talk loud so we can.
Okay.
Okay, here. We'll get the microphone.
I wish we would.
Do I just repeat after you?
Yes,
Okay.
repeat after me. Raise your right hand, please. I, Cade Millenbein,
I, Kay Millenbein,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States,
and that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
and bear true allegiance to the state of Texas and bear true allegiance to the state of Texas
and bear true allegiance to the state of Texas
and support the Constitution
and support the Constitution
and the laws therefore,
and the laws therefore,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill,
to the best of my skill,
judgment,
judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without prejudice,
without prejudice,
execute the office of the firefighter
execute the office of the firefighter
of the city of Levelland.
of the city of Levelland,
And I will familiarize
and I will familiarize
myself
myself
with and be obedient
with and be obedient
to the rules and regulations
to the rules and regulations
and operational procedures
and operational procedures
of the Levelland Fire Department,
of the Levelland Fire Department,
and faithfully serve
and faithfully serve
the Levelland Fire Department
and faithfully serve the Levelland Fire Department
in the discharge of my duties as a firefighter.
and discharge duties of a firefighter.
I acknowledge that my fundamental duty
I acknowledge the fundamental duty
is to serve the people.
is to serve the people.
I swear to protect,
I swear to protect,
to safeguard and preserve
to safeguard and preserve
life and property
life and property
against fire
against fire
and other perils,
and other perils,
and to maintain proficiency in the fire service.
to maintain proficiency in the fire service.
I recognize the badge
I recognize the badge,
of my office
my office,
as a symbol of public faith
as a symbol of public faith
and trust,
and trust,
and I promise to be true
and promise to be true
to the ethics of the fire service,
to the ethics of the fire service,
to make these promises
to make these promises
solemnly free
solemn and free
and upon my honor,
and upon my honor,
so help me God.
so help me God.
You're gonna need pictures of all of you guys.
Take
So.
your time. Take all the pictures. Come on, Slim, go.
All right, who would like pictures with our firefighters?
That was a long oath, brother.
And you nailed it.
Yeah.
It's back. Yeah. I'm gonna get them. Yay, all right. Yeah, scoot in like you like each other.
They're like, lots of space.
Here's like, out of here. Okay, Chief, I'm gonna need you to move a little bit to your left, just a tiny bit. Okay, that's good.
Not you,
Are we so bad?
Have everything you need?
Yes, I do.
Awesome.
No,
Who else would
no,
like
no,
pictures?
no, put council in there with him. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I didn't say for y'all to leave, y'all stay, council move in with.
This is earlier.
Yeah, okay.
You can probably, yeah, I'm arguing, I need some more. Can I get up to you again?
Okay, here we go, guys. Awesome. Okay, who else do we have?
Family. The whole
Bring
family.
them on. Bring them on up. Amazing. I got good pictures of you pinning that on. And the longer it took you, the more pictures I got to take, so that was good. All right. Awesome, guys. And leave it. All right. Any other pictures? We are. We can be here all night. Okay, congratulations. Welcome to school.
Andrea, and no statements by citizens, correct?
No statements by citizens.
All right, at this time, we'll move on to our first item on the agenda, which is to consider and take necessary action to approve the minutes of the April 7th, 2025 regular meeting and the April 21st, 2025 special meeting. We got a light group tonight. Looking at you, yeah.
I move to approve the minutes for our April 7th, 2025 regular meeting and April 21st, 2025 special meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, the motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the discussion with Hilltop Securities regarding financial options for the wastewater treatment plant project.
Just waiting on you. I didn't know you wanted me to click. Mayor and members of council, before I turn this over to Jason Hughes, and we appreciate him making time to come see us, I kind of want to give you an overview of where we're at with this project and what is going on. The kind of hard to read. The city began on our wastewater treatment plant in September of 2022. The council voted to increase our monthly sewer improvement fee by $6 in 22-23, and then increase it $6 again in 23-24, and then the last one in 24-25. This was to pay for the anticipated debt for moving forward on the plant. The current plant that we're under right now was built in 1983, 1984. It's about 41 years old. The average lifetime of a wastewater plant is around 40 years. Some say 30 to 40, some say 40 to 50. So 40 is a good number. In September of 2022, the council at that time was also presented with an opinion of probable cost for this project. Construction and related cost was approximately $16,045,251. Engineering and related cost was approximately $3,300,000 with a total opinion probable cost of $19,350,000. In October of 2022, the council approved a notice of intent to issue certificates of obligation for the wastewater treatment plant. And in December of 2022, the council approves an ordinance authorizing the issuance of the certificates for the wastewater treatment plant in the amount of $19,650,000. And then in early 23, authorize the engineers to begin designing and getting this plant ready to go out for bid. In March of this year, we went out for bids. In January and March of this year, we received the bids that came in. The bids came in significantly higher than we had anticipated. The lowest bid was at $26,265,000, significantly over, if you go back to the original number of 16 million. So this is where we're at today, is listening or looking for options. Staff is looking at our wastewater or our sewer improvement fund. We are looking at our wastewater reserves. We're looking everywhere to where we can find some dollars to bridge the gap. And if you will see, kind of try not to bounce around too much, but the funding mechanisms when we originally started this again was to increase the sewer improvement fee. $1 of our sewer improvement fee generates about $62,400 per year. We also sell our effluent water and return water to HET Levelland. That was a contract that was approved in June of 2022. We receive approximately $320,000 per year minimum payment. And that's just minimum. They have to pay that no matter what. We haven't, what's a metering it to the specifics, because the reason we're building a new plant is because our current plant is not operating efficiently and effectively. So the water we're delivering them is probably not to the standards that they would expect. So right now we're just staying with the minimum and reviewing everything on a month-by-month basis as we move forward with that. This next slide shows a document that was presented to the council when they were looking at how to fund this. It shows that in August 21 through July 22, the city had approximately 4,700 accounts in the sewer department. And as of September 2024, we have approximately 5,270 accounts. And you will see in the funding mechanisms that were listed in this slide, it shows the fund balance in our wastewater improvement fund. It shows utilizing funds from the ethanol effluent sale, and it also utilizing utility bill revenue. And we're still chasing down some of these numbers and some of these categories to make sure that we understand everything very clearly, so that as we move forward in looking at how we're going to fund this project, we can give y'all very clear and very solid advice. This next slide shows the current debt service that we're under. And if you will look at that, you see that we are paying about $1.5 million a year currently in debt service on the wastewater proposed wastewater treatment plant. And this again is for an issuance of $19,650,000. So where we're at today, as I said, the bids were opened on March 13th, 2025. The lowest bid is $26,265,000. There is a construction contingency, 5% at $1,313,250. That is very nerve-wracking because just with the market where it is today, just in normal times, 5% is very low. Usually you're a 10 to 15% contingency. So we're looking at that very carefully. The engineer's design and bidding services, which have been completed, which have been paid, is approximately $2,045,000. Construction services, and that's the discussion we're still having with Park Hill, is $965,000. The sub-consultants for survey testing, geotechnical services is approximately $290,000. And you will see the projected cost of this wastewater plant is $30,878,250, significantly over opinion of probable cost. This is where we are at this time of trying to navigate through this. Again, we've expended about $2,335,000. We know right now funding dollars available that we have identified right now is approximately an extra $2 million. Part of that is interest that was generated by the bond money sitting there. Part of that is dipping a little bit into the actual reserve fund to utilize those funds, which leaves us approximately $7 million that are necessary to continue to move this project forward. And I know we're not going to consider the project this evening, but the one thing that is out there, the options that we have, and they're not good options. So we're kind of choosing the best option. Because I've had some people ask me, why don't we just reject all bids and start over? Right now, I'm not recommending this, of rejecting all bids. If we do this, we're probably looking at a late summer, early fall before we would actually see the new bids come in. So the cost could be significantly higher. We had a low bid of 26 million and the next bid was 32 million. And we would probably see the lowest bid on the next go around at 32 million and work our way up. We also, time is of the essence. This project again is 41 years old, and we're 3 years from the day that we pretty much authorized this thing to get busy moving forward. So it's critical that we keep moving forward. The challenge is just figure out how do we find and where do we find the additional dollars. If we have to consider additional debt financing, which we're going to, I want to make sure this is understood that this will delay the implementation of our 2023 infrastructure master plan. It will also, we know we need a new animal services facility, so we're looking at that as well. And you'll see that tonight whenever Jason does his presentation. We looked at the absolute critical items that we have to do, that we just don't have any more time to push those around or anything. Our SCADA system, we've talked about that earlier in this year, that our SCADA system is failing. And also a new roof. We were hoping to have a report today from the TML risk pool that whether or not if they're going to cover our roof or not, we're still waiting on that. I sent them an email today asking for that, still haven't received it. So this is kind of setting the table for you guys of where we're at right now. We're looking at right now potentially an additional $7 million in debt. I know in the presentation tonight that Jason will give us, it's going to be showing about a 6.7. At the time, I thought that was the number, but as we pressed to get real numbers from our engineer and the project, you see in here what those numbers are. There's a letter on the dais from Park Hill that shows those numbers. We're sitting at 7 million, and hopefully we can bring that number down less. It's not a good situation for us to be in. I'm not happy. I know council's not happy. I know the newspaper did a great job of explaining this to the community. I apologize to the community that this project has gotten out of hand. But we don't have no choice except to move forward and try to figure out how to find the additional dollars. So I'm gonna step away and I'm gonna allow Jason to come up here and visit with y'all about the financing. And then again, no decisions tonight. We will consider this again next Monday when we have our regular meeting. And at that one, we will consider the bid award and probably have further discussions regarding the debt and the financing and stuff like that, because we are missing 2 members of our council and we'll probably need to recap with them as well as what we got. So,
That's a question real quick though.
yes, sir.
As we listen to this with that in mind, is there any possibility that as we watch this, we get approved for this, but we do not necessarily get the 7 million and start paying interest on all that until we get closer to end of that project, then get it and go? Because I mean, if we could save 10 years worth of interest rates on that and get it right there toward the end to finish paying those bills, is that a possibility?
That is something the contractor might be nervous, because if we award the contract and we don't have the money available right then and there, then they may be hesitant to move forward. The other caveat is that there's several bills within the legislative session right now that is limiting the ability to issue certificates of obligation. And one of the bills actually limits the certificates to the life of the project. So I know sewer plants again have varying lifespans. 40 is about the average. Our bonds are 20 years, but there's nothing to say that that could change and it could get even crazier. And they really keep moving around what is eligible for certificate of obligation and what isn't. So, but that's something that we can discuss with Jay when he gets up here. But I think the biggest thing that would be concerning would be from the contractor's point of view, that we approve this, but we don't have the 26 approved and available. Because what's from a council in 1 year, 2 years saying, we're not doing this? That's their concern.
Jason, thanks for coming.
Absolutely, Mayor and Council, great to be with you tonight. So James is passing out just a short summary. And so I'll kind of go through that as he's passing that out. So what you have in there, the first page goes through your existing debt. So you have 5 issues outstanding and you have 3 separate revenue streams for those 5 issues. One's your INS tax rate, which that actually paid off in February. Then you have sales taxes that come in, that pays 2 of those. And then of course, water and sewer rates pays the last 2. The couple pages after that, which I'll go through those in detail, just go through exactly what James went through. We talked about some of the projects, obviously the main one being the wastewater treatment plant. And so there is analysis on what debt service looks like to fund, as he pointed out, $6.7 million. I also, since we were talking about COs, kind of holistically included some of the other projects in there too. So again, happy to go through that, can talk through that. And then the last page is actually a calendar. And one of the things that he touched on is what's going on in Austin. And so let me briefly kind of say that what I'm going to talk about is as the CO statute stands right now, as the law reads right now, and what we're allowed to do. This could change depending on what the legislature does within roughly the next month or so. And obviously, as those things are coming down the pipe, hopefully we have enough lead time where we could actually address those. And that's one of the things that I'll talk about with the calendar. So let me go back to the first page, and it's the first fold out page. So again, this just summarizes your existing debt. So you have 5 issues outstanding. As I said, that INS tax supported. You see there in the dark blue, that's the GO refunding bonds. That again did pay off 2/15 of this year. So that is completely gone. The 2 sales tax issues, 2013 COs, and then the 2019 GO refunding bonds, as you can see, again, sales tax supported. Those actually had February 15th principal payment dates as well. So now in aggregate, there's about 3.27 million outstanding on those 2. And then as you can see there, that final maturity between the two is 2033. So that's when those would pay off. K through P. So you, as you well know, and as James just went through, the initial funding for the wastewater treatment plant was 2022. Some of you may recall that one of the main things that we discussed back then was the fact that we had to issue taxable COs, and that's because of that affluent contract that you have. So we had to move from tax exempt financing, which is what we would normally do, to taxable financing. We'd have to do that for anything moving forward, right? Since you still have that contract outstanding. And then, of course, earlier this year, you did approve the COs. Those were for the water meter. So that's the 2025. So those last two in the light blue, those are obviously paid for or anticipated to be repaid from water and sewer revenues. So if you'll turn with me on the next page. What I did, and I'll go through the entire thing, and then I'll kind of hone in on the wastewater treatment plant. So again, what James and I had talked about was looking at the COs holistically and looking at some of the other potential projects, obviously all subject to your desire to move forward with them. So those projects included fire department, and what was estimated as far as the project proceeds needed for that was $800,000. That's column E. A public facility, that is in column F. What was estimated for that was $6 million. And then if you go to column J, the wastewater treatment plant, again, at the time, estimated 6.7 million. And then for the SCADA, I broke those out. What was estimated is that roughly half would service water, half would service sewer. The importance of that is, again, for the fire department, public facility, and the water SCADA, I am anticipating that those could be financed tax exempt, which means a lower interest rate. Again, the wastewater treatment plant, the sewer SCADA, since those are sewer, again, tied back to that affluent contract, those would have to be financed on a taxable basis. And as I said back in 2022, that's nothing that the city's done wrong, that you've done bad. That's simply federal tax law. So this would be if we were talking about this exact same scenario for the city of Dallas, for Los Angeles, whomever, doesn't matter. Federal tax law, and that's what governs what type of debt has to be issued. Yes, ma'am.
You said that SCADA could be tax exempt.
On the water, I assume the water could, but the sewer, since the sewer again is tied back to that affluent contract, I've assumed that that would be taxable. So.
Double check that and make sure though, since it does go.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so this is, and that's a great
But
observation.
that pretty much monitors our usage, not necessarily that plant, correct?
That-
Mhm.
It monitors, but it also manages what's going on out there as
Okay.
far as the system and things like that.
And Mayor Pro Tem, to your point, what the tact I took is, let's be as conservative as
Sure.
possible. And so if we could do it on a tax exempt basis, that just means it's less debt service. So no, that's a great point. So let me kind of go, again, I'll go through this in a little bit more detail on column A, obviously your fiscal year end, column B for the specific projects tied to INS taxes and INS tax repayment. As you can see there, your taxable assessed valuation right now is just under 900 million. In column C, I have assumed no growth. So again, hopefully being very conservative, no growth in the tax base. Column D, again, that is actually now paid off. And then you can see there in the dark blue, the INS tax supported debt service for the 800,000 portion of the fire department. That's about $65,000 to $69,000 per year. For the public safety facility, if we were to provide $6 million in project proceeds, just under 500 million, or beg your pardon, 500,000, I apologize. And so you see there in column G, that projected debt service, you're looking at about $565,000 per year, conservatively. And when I say conservatively, I ran those at 5% interest rate, 20-year repayment. If we were to issue that debt today, so to speak, that'd probably be 4% to maybe 4.25%. So again, hopefully being very conservative. What that means is if you go to column H, if you were to do both the fire department financing and the public facility at the amounts I just went through, it'd be about 6.5 cents. So your current INS tax rate is 3.6 cents. And so that would be going up about approximately 3 cents to cover that. Okay. So that would be to cover those two projects. Let me pause there. Any questions on that INS portion?
It's not a question, it's just a comment. We need a new roof on the fire department. Nobody's saying we don't, surely not me. I hate the thought of financing a roof for 20 years and paying interest on a roof for 20 years that's going to need replaced before that. I don't have a better way. I don't have a plan. I just wish we could find $800,000. Obviously, everyone does, but somewhere else where we're not financing a roof for the next 20 years. I mean, the interest you're paying on that roof is,
$500,000.
yeah, is a lot. I mean, that's something that's going to be replaced. You never want to, pay interest on technology or things like that because it's going to have to be reproduced shortly. So if we could maybe internally work on some other way to finance the roof, the animal shelter, I mean, that's a facility, that's a building, that's a
It'll
asset.
last longer
It's
than
an asset.
20 years.
The roof it protects our asset. It is important. I just hate the fact of paying interest on that.
And Mayor, I certainly understand that especially whenever you have more repair and
Yes.
renovation, those type items. One thing I will say is I took except with the SCADA system, but for everything else, just assume 20 years is kind of a starting point. We could absolutely do less if you decided, okay, we are going to have to debt finance. If you do that, obviously you're amortizing more principal over a shorter time frame. So there are some trade-offs there, but I understand we could certainly look at that at the very least if we needed to.
Jason, before
Yes,
you
sir.
move on, and I'm not advocating this, that since we have paid off the current GEO debt, and since we don't have any for next year, our projected INS rate would be 0 going into the next year.
Correct.
I'm not saying that's the reason to do that, to add to that. I just wanted to be clear on that if we didn't, then that number would go down.
To your point, it does provide capacity, right? Being able to pay off your debt, which again, you have done on the INS side, does provide that capacity that you otherwise would have roughly 3 cents plus the 6 cents if you hadn't paid it off. So that's exactly right. That does give a little bit more flexibility there. Again, to James's point though, if you did nothing, then you would not have an INS tax rate unless, I will say this, unless you chose to levy it for any of the 4 outstanding issues. Okay, because you can levy an INS tax rate for those issues as well. I don't think you have historically because it's been, again, sales tax and water and sewer utility rates that have financed our utility revenues, but you can levy that. So for what that's worth. So let me go over on the water and sewer side. So this is in the pale blue, again, column I, that's the 2022 and the 25 debt service. So we want to make sure that we're taking into account the debt service that's attributable to the water and sewer system now. Again, just a very conservative 20 years. This is taxable. I ran this at a 6.5% interest rate. We'd certainly be lower than that again if we priced today. But as you can see there, that roughly is about $630,000 per year. And that's funding 6.7 million.
What's the current rate on?
The taxable, that would probably be closer to 5.75, 5.5, 5.75%.
That's huge, though, talking about this many dollars.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And my hope is, and one thing, Mayor, I will say is if you go back to now almost 3 weeks ago, we saw a run up in municipal rates of 85 basis points or over 0.8%, which is absolutely huge. It doesn't, 0.8% doesn't sound like much. In my world, that is a massive, massive shift. So I am trying to be somewhat overly conservative, given everything that's out there from economic and financial standpoint. So again, if we were to price today, these numbers would be significantly lower from a debt service perspective. So.
Do you have a reason why that went up?
In that particular case, it was the tariffs and the announcement there and what was going on. I won't make any comments. So my hope is we can at least get a little bit more stability, and that certainly helps the market because it's one of those things where fear in the market, in any kind of financial market, is not a good thing. And that's at least one of the reasons why you saw that significant run up. So K and L, again, that's the sewer SCADA, water SCADA. So you can see there again, sewer slightly higher because of the taxable financing. And then over in column M, debt service goes up to approximately 2.91 million is what's estimated. And then it comes back down. Okay, it starts to come down in 2033, 2.7 million, and then it falls off once you get quite a bit later on. So let me turn to the next page.
Jason, before you go to that page.
Sure.
I want to back you up when you mentioned levy. I want to make sure we're all on the same page. So
Sure.
can you kind of expand on that a little bit more?
Sure. So you have the ability to set an INS tax rate sufficient to pay your debt service. And that's what you told your bondholders whenever you went out and you issued debt. So if you go back to the very first page, so the types of debt that you have issued are GO refunding bonds or general obligation refunding bonds. Those are backed by ad valorem taxes. And then you issued COs, 3 issues of COs. So COs, the pledge, so what you told bondholders they have a right to, are your ad valorem taxes and a pledge of your water and sewer utility revenues. You, however, have the ability to repay that debt service from any legally available revenues in any given year. So you can, if you wanted to, levy an INS tax rate to repay utility debt service. Okay,
You
or
see
vice
that
versa.
done?
You do see it done sometimes, yes. I will tell you that I personally recommend that if you're going to do that, that it's typically no longer than probably 2 to 3 years, with the idea that you want, in theory, your utility system should be fully self-supporting, right? And so if you're having to issue debt for capital assets to build that out, then that should be paying for itself, right? And that comes through water and sewer rates, the affluent contract, things of that nature. The other thing is, so you have an A+ credit rating with Standard & Poor's. I think if it's for a year to 2 to maybe 3 years, they'll probably look at that and say, okay. If it goes longer than that and it becomes something that, and I'm just making up a number, oh, we levy 5 cents to pay our utility related debt service, they're going to look at that and they're going to take that going forward and say, okay, well, you're not fully supporting this with your utility revenues. So could that put pressure on the credit rating? Maybe. I think all other things being equal, I don't see that leading to a downgrade, but that is something just to be aware of that they do look at. And very generally speaking, they like to see that that's fully self-supporting by the utility revenues.
So we could do 3 years, because 2 years is going to be construction of the plant and get a year operating and then go back to our effluent contract. It gives us a better ability to manage that and to truly ascertain what water we are selling to them. Is it the minimum or is it above the minimum? So that could help in the funding source of the.
I think it can help in the funding source, and especially given the shortfall that you have right now, right? And the fact that you did raise rates back in 2022, knowing that you had the wastewater treatment plan, and at least at that time, what was thought to be all the funding that was needed for it, right? So you raise those rates to do that. So yes, I think it does provide some flexibility if you chose to do that within the budget. So if you turn to, and this is the last long page, go again to column J, everything else is exactly the same. So there's no changes from the prior page. The one thing that is different is in column J, what I did here is I structured that debt to provide more upfront relief. Okay, so if you look at it that first year, it's interest only for the period of about 7 years, and then you start paying principal then, and then you see larger chunks of principal in the back end. And what that does is that brings down your early year debt service by about $160,000 a year. So it's purely to really help that portion of the debt service repayment. Now, there's a trade-off to that, right? Because if you're $2 million, that's exactly right. And so I want to be very clear, that's the trade-off, which is you're not paying off principal until a later date. And as such, you're going to pay more interest. Now, the other thing I will point out is this does not take into account that if you were in a point or at a point where the utility system was generating quote unquote excess revenue, you can always pay off debt early. None of that's taken into account here. So Mayor, to your point, yes, it's $2 million for comparative, kind of an apples to apples purpose. But you always have the flexibility to pay off debt early, or you could even refinance it in the future if rates were such that it was a lower interest rate, drive down those costs. But yes, it is as estimated here, $2 million overall over that 20 million or 20-year time frame more in debt service.
How far out do we have to wait before we can refinance?
Typically, we would do anywhere from 8 to 10 years, depending on the market. So we would have that locked in. So again, let me pause there before I go to the last page. Other questions specific to the debt service or the structure? Okay. You turn with me to the last page. What I included in here was just a draft calendar. Once again, nothing required tonight. This is just to give you an idea of if you wanted to sell COs, what that could look like. Now, the one thing I will say is I was telling a couple of people, I actually drove from Dallas here today. And so I spent about 75% of my drive on the phone talking about everything going on down in Austin. One of the things in talking with a couple of bond counsels that I would amend this last page is if you look down at the very bottom, the second from the bottom line, September 8th, that's what I had estimated as a sell date. I would actually scoot that back and say, let's sell, if you decide to move forward, sell the COs by August 31st. And the reason that is because if the legislature does make a change, typically those go into effect September 1. And so in talking with the bond counsels and a couple of other clients I was on the phone with this morning, that's what we really discuss is beating that September 1st timeframe. So I apologize. I didn't have that. Like I said, I just had that conversation this morning. So that would be the one thing. And I can certainly provide an updated calendar. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So if you see
other dates need to move, if we moved it to the week of the 23rd or.
We'd probably want to,
All those last 5 items.
the main thing would be this June 16th up at the top.
Yes, sir.
And then the main rule, just so everyone knows, what we're trying to do is where you see that first notice of intent in this calendar, it is published June 22nd. That first notice has to occur 46 days or more from our sale date. So that would be the main thing. And I could go back and kind of back it up from there. So potentially looking at maybe even a late May, or maybe even a 1st of June council meeting for that notice of intent. I think that would certainly encapsulate that. So I will tell you, there is a bill, y'all probably have already heard of it, House Bill 19. And so it does a number of things as far as taking away cities' ability to issue COs for certain projects. One of the things that they are talking about taking away is your ability to do any kind of work on an existing building. So if you were looking at I think what we have in there is labeled as public safety, if I remember correctly, that could be taken out. And the simple fact is we unfortunately don't know what's going to pass, what's not going to pass. I have been told there's another thing in there that basically says you can issue debt, but only up to 20% of effectively your tax levy collections. It's actually for the last 3 years. So if you think about that, 20%, I think your tax levy collections are around 4.25 million over the last 3 years. That would be $850,000 of debt service that you could have. Now, I am told, for what it's worth, that there is a thought that that will get taken out. But as it stands right now, the bill that's being discussed, it is in that bill. So just to underscore, in my opinion, it is critical based on what we know today to go ahead and sell before 9/1 if you choose to sell. I will also say that at least what has happened the last couple of legislative sessions, the legislators don't particularly care for COs as it relates to non-utility projects. The utility projects, there seems to be an acknowledgement that you have to put in water lines, sewer lines, general utility infrastructure. So I think that they would leave that alone. But I think on the INS side, specific to COs, that there could be some danger there. So with that last bit of great news, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Feel like Dr. Doom up here.
And you see these things all the time. Can I put you on record to say, what is your opinion of the city of Levelland's financial situation right now?
Sure.
And this project moving forward?
So let me, Mayor, if I can, let me kind of take a couple of different paths to answer that question. As far as your financial position, you're an A+ credit rating city, by S&P, very strong. I have not seen anything within that credit profile that leads me to have concern about your structural financial doings or whatever you want to call that. So I don't think that that's a problem. Obviously, one of the main things is anytime you're going out and you're taking on debt service is identifying what's the debt service stream that we're going to have to repay the debt, right? And so this is obviously something that was not anticipated, certainly whenever we issued back in 22. I will also tell you that I did talk with a number of my partners, and I think it was probably 3 of them that said that they had seen more or less the same thing from other city clients.
Right
as far
now
as
or
this.
previously?
Right now. So seeing substantial increases. And in one case, I have one of my partners who has a larger city, and the increase was about 33% in his case.
35 here.
Yeah, so it tracks. It does track. So we are seeing that. This is unfortunately something that just kind of given the time frame that you're seeing more of. We've continued to have inflationary costs come in, and then with the uncertainty with the tariffs, it's just a kind of a storm as it relates to if you're trying to put in capital projects in the ground, so to speak.
Rough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
My only question, talk to me like I'm two. This, where you were saying sell, so if we choose to sell, we have to do, is the selling where this number comes from? That. the
Yes, ma'am.
third-
So-
Okay, so that's where that 2 million, because you said,
That's a great
Okay.
question. So let me,
so if we don't sell, we're looking at this page. If we do sell, it's looking at this page?
that's right. Let me
Okay.
go through, and I'm happy to go through just very quickly. So what would happen in this situation if you were going to issue certificates of obligation? So council approves what's called a notice of intent. That notice of intent has 3 main things in it. Has the general list of the projects, the date in which you plan to meet to consider the sale, and general list of projects. Well, it'll come back to me here in a second.
The other two we just did.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it does have those items in there, but what that does is it starts the clock, and that's all based off of state statute. And so what we are doing during that time period is we're putting together an offering document. We'll go out and we'll have an underwriter that will market and sell the debt. I bring that back to you on a council meeting night, and then it's much like entering into a mortgage in the sense that at that time, I ask you to approve it. We know exactly how much is being issued. We know the interest rate on it. We know what your payments are going to be. And once it's sold and approved, everything gets sent down to the Attorney General's office. His office reviews all public debt sales in Texas. And then roughly 30 days later, that's when you have funds in the bank. And so that's kind of the start to finish that process. Oh, and the one thing on the CO, and I apologize, you have in there a not to exceed amount. That was the third thing. And so the nice thing about that is once you council decide that, and let's just say it's $7 million, you cannot go over that. So it gives your citizens kind of the comfort of knowing, okay, council's called for this or approved this notice of intent. We're going to issue up to $7 million of COs, and that's all.
So with you saying you've seen it happening a lot more often now, when we get asked, because we will, it's not something we did wrong to get to this point.
It's not something from what I've seen, no, I don't think it's anything that you have done wrong. And I would also say that there are other cities.
Situation.
That's right. There are other cities that are dealing with this exact same thing where they have cost overruns and they financed what they at the time knew the cost to be or thought the costs were. And because of inflation and different factors, that cost has now gone up significantly. I will tell you, and granted, it's been a couple of years ago, but I had one of my cities, they were doing a public safety facility. And it was, if I remember right, $62 million, and about 18 to 24 months later, it was 90. So that's what they had to up their bond election to call so they could pay for that. So it is not just leveling.
Can you address the Mayor Pro Tem's question to me regarding deferring doing this at a later date?
This date right here.
So I think there's legislative risk, albeit again, since this is a utility project, I don't think they're going to do anything with that. But the other thing in my mind is the interest rate component, right? And I listen to a lot of different people that are way, way smarter than I am. And they talk about tariffs in particular being inflationary. And so generally speaking, if you have an inflationary environment, you're going to see long-term interest rates or higher, beg your pardon, long-term interest rates. So we could be in a situation where if it's 5.5% to 6% right now, if it's 8%, that drastically changes those numbers as well. So that would be my concern. And certainly on something like this, I don't know that I have seen a wastewater treatment plant that has been financed purposefully over 2 different tranches or even 3 different tranches or series of bonds, if that makes sense.
Is there a reason we can't refinance these bonds for 8 to 10 years?
So what happens is whenever we go out to sell them, we tell investors you have these bonds for a period of time because they want to know that they have, if they're buying long-term debt, that they have that locked in for a certain period of time. Typically, again, 8 to 10 years. We could issue shorter term or shorter debt with a shorter call date, but that interest rate starts to go up. But that's certainly something we could do. I had a college district that we actually sold, and one set of maturities had one call date, another set had another call date. Yes, we did pay more for it, but it also provided some flexibility. So we can always look at that at the time or at time as well.
For both of those, if we ended up interest drop, we could refi both of them and maybe roll them together. Don't know if it's even possible.
You can.
It's just a lot.
It's a lot.
Thank you so much.
That's what I was
I
just about to say.
completely understand.
The last
Completely
2
understand.
months. Much for driving in.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Jason, you've always answered our questions. We do appreciate that.
Well, thank you. If there's others, please let me know. And again, I'm happy to run any analysis for updated numbers or things like that. And I'll certainly be talking with James. So. All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Be safe going home.
Do you have any suggestions for a good dinner? We have a great place to eat.
Any more discussion we want to have internally on this item or move on to the next item? Next item number 3 will be to consider and take necessary action on resolution number 2025-06, updating the city of Levelland authorized representatives for financial management purposes. Is this you, Cynthia?
Yes.
Awesome.
Really so much taller than me. Good evening, Mayor and Council. In requesting that the bank, what we're asking is that the names on the bank depository be updated. Historically, what's happened, myself, the financial director, and the city manager are on the bank depository as primary signatures. So the check requires 2 signatures, and those are the names that are on there. In the event for emergencies, city secretary and assistant city manager have been on there. What we're requesting, since we've had a change in personnel, is just for those names to be updated. So we would go from Joe being on there to Justin. Additionally, historically, the police chief has been on the bank account for seized funds. Since we've had a change there, we're just requesting that the names be updated as well.
Great idea to update these. I mean, last May showed us anything can happen and we need to be ready.
Absolutely. I move to approve resolution number 2025-06, updating the city of Levelland authorized representatives for financial management purposes.
Guess I need a second.
I guess you don't have to.
Motion in a second, all in favor?
Aye.
With that, and opposed, item passes. Item number 4 will be to consider and take necessary action on ordinance 1093, amending chapter 12, Parks and Lakes area, section 12.203, prohibitions of the city of Levelland Code of Ordinances on a second reading.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight I brought to you back the bounce house ordinance and then also the RV park ordinance. Remind me again which ordinance we're on currently. Okay, so this would be the second reading. Any questions for me on that or?
No, sir. Understand why we're doing it. Any questions? Bounce house?
No. Totally makes sense.
I do. I actually have a comment real fast.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'll turn on my microphone. I have a comment because the question came up today. They said, oh, people are really going to be angry that they can't have bounce houses in the parks? And I said, we've never allowed bounce houses in the parks. It's been a rule and a policy, but it's never been in the ordinance. And so this is simply having an ordinance to back up rules we were already enforcing.
And then are we gonna, do we need to read that again right now or?
Normally do, right? Do you know?
Yeah.
You can make a motion in a second or you
I move-
can read it first.
I move that we approve ordinance 1093, amending chapter 12 of the City of Levelland Code of Ordinances on a second reading.
Second. Motion in a second, all in favor?
Hold on, we gotta read first.
Okay, I always mess that up.
Right, there you go. Ordinance number 1093, an ordinance amending the City of Levelland, Texas Code of Ordinances, 1997, Chapter 12, Parks and Lake Areas, by amending Article 12.203 entitled Prohibitions, to amend and clarify what acts are prohibited in city parks and lake areas, providing for enforcement, providing an effective date, providing savings clause, providing a repealer, and providing for publication. Whereas the City Council for the City of Levelland, Texas, pursuant to the Constitution and laws of the State of Texas, including but not limited to Article 11, Section 5 of the Texas Constitution, as a home rule city has the authority to set forth ordinances and regulations and exercise its police powers to take steps necessary to protect the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the citizens of the City of Levelland. Whereas it is generally recognized throughout the country that parks and other recreational areas should be safe for all users of such areas. And whereas it is the intent of the City Council of the City of Levelland to improve and protect public's health by making the city's parks and other recreational areas a safe and enjoyable place for everyone. And whereas the City Council finds it is in the best interest of the public to implement certain prohibitions and regulations to protect the health and safety of the citizens of Levelland, Texas. Now therefore be it ordained by the City of Levelland, Texas, that one, the findings and recitals set forth above are hereby found to be true and correct and are hereby adopted and approved by the City Council and incorporated into this ordinance as those set forth fully herein. Section 2, the Code of Ordinances, 1997, City of Levelland, Texas, Chapter 12, Parks and Lake Areas, is hereby amended by modifying Article 12.203, entitled Prohibitions as follows. Article 12.203, Prohibitions 15, erect, place, or use any inflatable structure designed for adults or children to jump and play on or in, commonly referred to as a bouncy, bounce house, or inflatables. And 16, construct or erect any type of item or structure, including but not limited to tents or shade devices that require the use of stakes being placed into the ground to secure the item. Section 3 has the effective date, severability in Section 4, repealed in Section 5, and publication in Section 6.
Thank you. We have a motion in a second. All in favor? Aye. With that, motion carries. Next, we'll move on to ordinance 1094.
Mayor and Council, so currently we do not have many of our RV park rules in our ordinance, so basically the same thing with the bounce houses. We'd like to put all our rules at the RV park into ordinance where it would give the police department a better, teeth to help us maintain the RV park and enforce the rules that are out there. Just want to note real quick that this RV park is fairly busy. We have a lot of people driving down 385. And if you didn't know, Highway 385 starts in Deadwood, South Dakota, and it goes all the way to Big Bend National Park. So we have tons of people that from the Western United States stay at our RV park. And we have run into some issues here lately, just EV charging, people reserving spots and shouldn't, and just things going on that we'd like to end and make our RV park better. So just want to give you a little background on that.
Any questions? We have a motion?
I agree. I move that we approve ordinance 1094, amending the rules for the City of Levelland RV Park on a first reading.
Second.
Motion in a second. We'll read.
Ordinance number 1094. Ordinance amending the City of Levelland, Texas Code of Ordinances, 1997, Chapter 12, Parks and Lake Areas, by amending Article 12.211, titled Camping, to amend and clarify what acts are prohibited or otherwise regulated in the city parks and lake areas, providing for enforcement, providing an effective date, providing a savings clause, providing a repealer, and providing for publication. Whereas the City Council for the City of Levelland, Texas, pursuant to the Constitution and laws of the State of Texas, including but not limited to Article 11, Section 5 of the Texas Constitution, as a home rule city, has the authority to set forth ordinances and regulations and exercise its police powers to take steps necessary to protect the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the citizens of the City of Levelland. And whereas it is generally recognized throughout the country that parks and other recreational areas should be safe for all users of such areas, whereas it is the intent of the City Council of the City of Levelland to improve and protect the public's health by making the city's parks and other recreational areas a safe and enjoyable place for everyone. Whereas the City Council finds it is in the best interest of the public to implement certain prohibitions and regulations to protect the health and safety of the citizens of Levelland, Texas. And therefore be it ordained by the City of Levelland, Texas, that Section 1, the findings and recitals set forth above are hereby found to be true and correct and are hereby adopted and approved by the City Council and incorporated into this ordinance as though fully set forth fully herein. Section 2, the Code of Ordinances, 1997, City of Levelland, Texas, Chapter 12, Parks and Lake Areas, is hereby amended by modifying Article 12.211 entitled Camping as follows. Article 12.211, Camping / RV Park. 2, all RV spaces are available on a first-come basis, but only one space is available for use for each RV. 3, RV spaces are provided free of charge for up to 3 days. Reservations are not accepted, and saving of spaces is not permitted. 4, only one free stay per 30 days is permitted. This will help ensure that space is available as necessary for other travelers. 5, water and electric hookups are provided free of charge at each RV space. 6, only household pets overnighting in the RV are permitted. Owners are required to clean up after their pets and are responsible for any damage caused by such pets. 7, a free sewage dump station is provided on site for RV campers entering or leaving the park. RV campers cannot be parked at the dump station, and there can be no direct hookup to the dump station from a parked RV camper. 8, trash containers and dumpsters are provided for convenience. RV tenants are required to use trash containers and dumpsters and otherwise keep area clean and sanitary. 9, when space is available, RV campers may be permitted to stay up to an additional 7 days for a maximum of 10 days. To do so, an RV camper must apply for and receive a permit on or before the 3rd day and prepay a fee of $25 for each additional day. Permits may be obtained in the fee paid at City Hall. 10, no EV charging allowed in RV park. 11, no tent camping or sleeping in vehicles outside of the RV. 12, no open campfires allowed. Manufactured outdoor cooking / charcoal grills are permitted. 13, no clotheslines, freezers / refrigerators, fencing, barriers or pallets, dog kennels, pens or dog runs allowed outside of an RV. 14, no mats, rugs, etc. allowed on the grass. 15, all water hoses / sewer lines must be free from leaks. And 16, solicitation or signs for the sale of products / services is prohibited. And then we got the Section 3 effective date, severability, Section 4 repealed, Section 5, and publication, Section 6.
Thank you, sir.
Question. On there, it talks about the free stays up to 10 days with a permit. Is that in a given time? Can they leave and then come back? Is that per month? Do we need to add that to be per month?
It is supposed to be every 30 days, and I thought that was, actually, it's only one free stay per 30 days. It's permitted on item number 4.
Okay. But okay, I guess. I was just thinking when you added the 7 days.
Yep.
Good with that. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
With that, the motion carries. We'll move on to item number 6, to consider and take necessary action to authorize the city manager to complete and submit TDM grant terms and conditions packets regarding federally declared disaster DR 4781 flat wind incident.
How are y'all this evening?
You.
Hopefully quick for y'all, so y'all can continue with what you've got going on. So really, this is just a formality. The FEMA process were required. The state of Texas is actually who the funds have already been obligated for our disaster that we went through last May. TDM is the placeholder for that and make sure that everything is done. So we have to go through ultimately their process to get all of the obligations that we've already been approved for to be sent through. So this is really just kind of the only thing, the speed bump kind of holding us back to get some of those obligations for the grant funding back down. And grant funding is the term they use. It's actually reimbursement for money we've already spent. So we've got 8 projects total. I think 5 right now are approved and then a couple more pending. So
Oh, any idea once we approve this and get this in, when that funding might come in?
should be pretty quick because it's sitting there waiting for us. It's already in the state. So
Okay, so it's not some giant, long process like I thought after this. Okay, great. Any questions for Cole?
I move to approve and authorize the city manager to complete and sign the grant terms and conditions.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries. Thank
Thank
you,
y'all.
Cole. Thanks for waiting for that. Next item is number 7, city manager report, staff updates, project updates, staff citizen recognition, items of community interest. No action will be taken.
Mayor and council members, I'll be quick on this. Last day for early voting is tomorrow at the Hockley County Elections Office. Levelland Listens is tomorrow, the 29th at 5:30 here at City Hall. Main Street Board will have a meeting at 4:30. Wednesday, April 30th at 10 a.m. is a police officer memorial service at the entrance to South Plains College campus entrance. Is that correct, Chief? 10 a.m. Wednesday? Okay. And then Thursday, the Levelland Minister Alliance will be hosting a National Day of Prayer at the Hockley County Courthouse lawn at noon. And then Saturday is our general election for City Council, District D, and special election charter amendments is this Saturday. May 5th, week from tonight, is our next meeting. And we think on May 6th, we've been working with Senator Perry's office and everybody over in the move over bill that will be adding animal control officers that if they're performing their duties on the side of the road, you're supposed to move over. That bill is moving its way through the we've asked for a signing ceremony with the governor. That's not being able to happen. So the next thing is that we're working with Senator Perry's office where they'll mention the names of the officers, if I remember correctly. When the Senate adjourns, they'll talk about the resolution or the bill and then mention their names. It's probably a 5-minute deal, but we don't really know how, but we've still offered to let the families go down there and be a part of that, whether it's, the sad thing is we don't know if it'll be 8 in the morning or 8 at night. So we're still trying to work on that, but Andrea has reached out to them, offered that if anyone from the city would like to go with them as well.
We do not have a date. Right.
May 6th right now is where we're trying to work, or what we've told them is the day that we will do it. We just hadn't got confirmation that is the day, but that's the day we've all kind of established. So which is a week from tomorrow. So if it comes together, we got to do a lot of work very quickly to try to help get hotel rooms or whatever else may be needed. I wish there was more recognition to this, but we can do something here when it comes back as well. So, and again, as I've told members of the family, when we build our new animal services facility, we will find a way, I don't know what yet, but to incorporate and honor their service and their memory with that new facility when that time comes.
Wonderful.
Anything else, staff, anything needs to be added?
Did you say Levelland listens? I didn't hear.
Yes, ma'am. I know you don't listen to me, but that's okay.
Okay, good. Any questions for James or anything? Okay. Well, we'll move on to item number 8 for executive session.
Couple of quick items.
Okay. Okay, Andrea, I don't have an executive session script.
Because it's on my desk.
That's all right, and kind of panicked a little bit.
Sorry about
So, thank you. The City Council of the City of Levelland will convene into executive session on the 20th day of April, 2025 at 7:09 p.m. Subject matter of the executive session deliberations are as follows. Convene into executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.074 to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, city manager, convening to executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.072 to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, convening to executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.087 to deliberate economic development negotiations. 7:09. Will we have any action for the press? Okay. 7:09.
It comes on, but I was doing it. Magic.
The City Council of the City of Loveland has completed its executive session on the 20th day of April, 2025 at 7:45 p.m. o'clock with no action. And as of that, we are adjourned.
Wow.